What's up, guys? We are going to take the evening to talk about population growth. So, a term population refers to all of the members of one species in a single place or a time. So, if you take a look at this photo, how many possible populations you would see? I would say maybe 4 or 5 of just fish species, and then let alone plants. So there are three general terms used to describe populations. The first is population size, which is the number of individuals in a population. Population density, which is the number of individuals in a given area, and dispersion, or how those individuals are arranged within a space. So dispersion, or how members are arranged in a given space, can tell us a lot about reproduction and protection from predators, the different hunting patterns. And individuals of a population may be distributed according to three basic patterns. We have the random pattern, the uniform or even pattern, and a clumped pattern. Random dispersion is scattered and not uniform, like the pine trees, because the environment is uniform. Individuals might be solitary, in which case they're living very independent. So one pine tree doesn't really depend on another pine tree. They can be randomly distributed. Uniform dispersion is about equal distance apart, forming a pattern, usually due to resource competition. And clumped dispersion, where some are grouped in some places, they're absent in others, and that might be because resources are patchy and the ability to search for food. So things like a deer herd or this group of buffalo. So, in terms of population density, or the number of individuals that live within a given area, scientists would end up studying density to determine how they reproduce, how they protect their young and each other, what their eating patterns are, and if there are social hierarchies. We know that there's a population of wildebeest in both photos, but if you wanted to know which had the greatest population density, you could see that the top photo has the most in one very small area. In terms of population growth, they're the natural population that tends to stay the same size year after year. They can very suddenly increase or decrease, and that might be due to the number of births, the number of deaths, or the number of individuals that enter or leave. So, immigration is the movement of individuals into a population, and emigration is the move of individuals out of a population. So, many animals will end up moving out of their population when they reach maturity because they're going to need to find new territory, mates, or food to supplement them. In terms of modeling population growth, the success is the reproduction of species. So we can study how and why the number of species will change over time. We understand that the growth rate of a population is known as R, and R is the birth rate minus the death rate. If a population is given abundant resources, protection from predator or disease, it will really thrive. And there are two types of population growth. There's exponential growth and logistic growth. So exponential growth is the rate of population growth stays the same and the population will steadily increase. It displays a J-shaped curve indicating a steady increase of population. So you see it's fairly steady, and this is the world population through 2001, and then we spike up in a J shape. But what if the population size kept growing and growing? Well, we meet something called carrying capacity, or the population size that an environment can sustain. So take some time, maybe jot down next to this, but what factors do you think can contribute to carrying capacity? Well, overpopulation on its own can lead to insufficient supply of water, starvation and malnutrition or poor diet for a lack of food, unhygienic living conditions, high risk of infectious disease. COVID-19 was a huge indicator of overpopulation, the disturbance of ecosystems, etc. You can probably think of a few more just by thinking about the world we live in and world news. So our density-dependent factors. Resources that are limited because the rate at which they become depleted depends on the density of populations that use them. For example, food, water, and shelter can limit the population size. For instance, if you were given a town, but you could only have so much food, you'd only want enough people that you'd consistently be able to have the same amount of food. If you had too little food, some people would probably leave to find food elsewhere. We also have logistic growth, and this model of population growth considers the carrying capacity, or K, and is limited by density-dependent factors. And so as resources become less available, the population slows or stops. This forms an S-shaped curve. Population size is capped at the carrying capacity. And you can see this here where carrying capacity is about 375. We see a pretty stable population there. So some limiting factors to population size or something that will cause populations to decrease would be competition, predation, parasitism or disease, drought or extreme climate, and some human disturbance. So density-independent factors, or factors that do not depend on the size of a population but can still impact it, would be weather or climate, wildfire. They can reduce a population size, but it's completely random and doesn't actually consider how dense the population is or what the carrying capacity would be. Our strategist species are species that grow exponentially when the environment's right, resulting in very temporarily large populations like mosquitoes or salmon. When the environmental conditions aren't suitable for that species, the population size will quickly decrease. So R is for the rate as in high rate of population growth. That's a J-shaped curve. So mosquitoes are the perfect example of this because when there is a lot of wet weather, there's standing water, you're going to have a lot of mosquitoes around you. However, once the environmental condition dries up and it's no longer suitable for mosquitoes, the population quickly decreases. Or perhaps you think of fruit flies. If you leave a lot of fruit around your house, you'll have a exponentially growing population of fruit flies. But if you take that all away, they no longer have a suitable environment. Case strategists are organisms that grow slowly, population sizes are usually small, and kept near carrying capacity. Case strategists are characterized by a long lifespan, slow maturing processes, and reproduction late in life. So, thinking about many of the mammals we know and love, like gorillas or orcas, in theory, humans are case strategists. Um, Unfortunately, we haven't kept our population sizes very small. That is the one very unique thing about us. So K is for carrying capacity, and that's an S-shaped curve. That's the end of our notes for today. You'll have an open note quiz at your next class period, and we will start doing some group work and some partner work to help you actually see this take place in populations.